The first thing that hit me at dinners like these was the weight of the silence. The laughter, hollow and forced, drifted through the air, bouncing off glass chandeliers and polished marble, straining to sound genuine. I sat on the edge of an interminable table, my linen napkin folded with clinical precision, feeling the sting of the distance in the air. My wife's father, Leonard Whitmore, presided over the gathering like a monarch holding court at some grand feast. His gaze never once drifted in my direction as he spoke. He didn't need to look at me. His words sliced through the atmosphere, meant to graze my skin like the sharp edge of a scalpel, leaving just enough of a mark to remind me where I stood. Some of us, he said, swirling his Bordeaux with deliberate grace, understand scale. Others set up shop with folding tables and call it entrepreneurship. His voice dripped with disdain, and the laughter that followed was cold, too rehearsed, as though everyone knew I played the game but no one truly cared. I noticed the smallest shift in my wife's posture, a slight wince, barely perceptible. But I saw it. I smiled, said nothing. The worst betrayals, I've come to learn, are often the ones done with the thinnest veil of civility. Leonard had made his thoughts clear on me long before that night. He had told her, before we married, that I wasn't good enough. He said it again when she decided to join my small agency as a partner, and still after we secured our first big account. To him, we were always too small for his world. You don't need to prove anything to him, she whispered to me once, her voice warm and steady when I came home defeated after a pitch fell through. Her hand in mine was meant to be enough. I wanted so desperately to believe her. But then came the meetings she missed, patterns I couldn't ignore, the tension in her voice when we argued, the way she chose her words more carefully, like she was walking on glass. I could feel the shift in her, a subtle reorientation toward the values she had inherited from her father, ambition, power, success. And somewhere along the way, I started doubting my own reflection. When Leonard invited us to his exclusive investor dinner, I almost didn't go. I was tired of shrinking myself, tired of swallowing my pride just to keep the peace. But something inside me snapped. I was no longer content to hide in the shadows of his world. I wore the same suit I had worn the day I signed my first contract. A quiet, defiant reminder where I came from, of who I was before Leonard's world tried to swallow me whole. The dining room that night was a battlefield of power moves and unspoken rules. Rolexes flashed beneath tailored sleeves. Foreign accents linger like perfume, and compliments dressed in the finest silk often masked sharp, subtle insults. Leonard introduced me with all the care of a man presenting a pet at a show. "This is my daughter's husband," he said with a flick of his wrist. "He runs a little agency downtown. It's quaint." I didn't flinch. Not when he mentioned my lack of a proper office. Not when his voice dropped to a low, almost conspiratorial tone as he leaned in and whispered, "She could have done better." But then something changed. The man sitting across from him, an older gentleman with silver hair and an air of quiet authority, set down his wine glass. His name was James Calden, and he was Leonard's biggest client. An enigmatic figure who had built a tech empire from a single algorithm and wielded more influence than most governments. Calm and composed, he turned his gaze from Leonard to me. "Actually," he said, his voice cool and measured, "he's my son." The room froze. It wasn't the kind of silence that comes from respect. It was a deeper, thicker quiet, the kind that settles in your bones and tightens your chest. Leonard blinked, momentarily thrown off guard, his usual command slipping. James didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply stated, "My biological son. I found him 2 years ago." He didn't want it public, didn't want nepotism, wanted to build on his own. And in that moment, everything shifted. I watched as Leonard's face drained, the colors slipping away drop by drop, his smug, imperial composure shattering like brittle porcelain. James, unfazed, turned to me. "You kept your promise," he said, his words steady. "You didn't tell anyone, not even your wife." I nodded, feeling the weight of his gaze. I wanted to earn this moment, to prove that I had more than just ambition, more than just a name attached to me. My wife's breath hitched beside me. She looked at me, her eyes wide, as if she were seeing a stranger. Maybe I was to her now. James continued, his voice a calm ripple in the sea of tension that had built around us. Leonard, you mock him for the size of his business, yet he turned down funding from me twice. Built something real, ethical, scalable, something your firm tried to copy and failed. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. The room seemed to shift ever so slightly. Investors subtly leaning in, the conversation around me pivoting like the tide, sweeping toward me now. It was a subtle movement, but it was power all the same. Leonard stood too quickly, the legs of his chair scraping loudly against the floor, breaking the spell. "This is some kind of joke," he spat, his voice rising. James didn't flinch. He didn't blink. "No joke. But it is telling, isn't it, Leonard, that you didn't see his value, even when he was right in front of you." We left soon after, the evening stretching on in the silence of the car. My wife didn't speak, her gaze fixed on the city lights flickering past a window, as if she were watching something unravel outside. I didn't speak either. There was nothing left to say. Finally, she whispered, her voice small and fragile, "Why didn't you tell me?" I turned to her, my gaze steady, not cruel, just real, because I needed to know if you saw me. Not the name, not the money, me. Tears welled in her eyes, but she turned away, as if the weight of that truth was too much to bear. And in that moment, I understood something had ended long before tonight. The betrayal didn't lie in what had been done, but in what had gone unseen. Back at our apartment, still small, still ours, I walked into home office. A single desk, a whiteboard, a vision. I sat down, exhaled, and let the quiet settle over me. I thought of Leonard's face, pale and small in his defeat, when he realized the man he had belittled was the one holding the key to his most important account. I thought of my wife, and how love doesn't die with a scream, but with the crushing weight of silence. I thought of justice, not as revenge, but as clarity, the moment when truth doesn't need to shout because it already stands tall, quiet, and undeniable. I clicked on the lamp, its warm light spilling over my notes. I let the quiet hum of the room fill the space, and then, almost to myself, I whispered, steady and quiet, "They never saw me coming." And that was the point.